Hey BNCers, just a little thought I want to give you today. Have you ever been in a situation or you feel like God's leading you a certain direction and you go that direction and things start to work out really well for you? You get this period of time where you have that affirmation and you feel like this is definitely the direction that God wanted me to go. And you have this period where things are going well and things are going great and you're like, wow, thanks God. I really understand this is the place I was supposed to be or I was supposed to go. Maybe it's a career change, a different place of employment, a lateral change in the company you're working for, or a different job, different position. And you get this honeymoon phase where things are going really well. But then you always have this time where it kind of goes downhill. It's not like things go in the tank at all, but it's not like things just fall apart, but things don't work out the way you think they should work out. We always think our plans are best. We fail to realize that God has much greater plans for us. In the book of Acts, in chapter 16, Paul and Silas probably have a very similar feeling in their ministry. In chapter 16, Paul receives a vision from God, and in the vision, there's this Macedonian who is pleading with him to come and minister to them. And so when Paul wakes up from the vision, they set sail and they go over there. In the beginning, they have pretty good success, and you hear about Lydia being saved, her family being saved, and then something terrible happens, or so we think. There's a demon-possessed woman who's following them around, who's proclaiming what they're doing in their ministry, and it goes on for a couple of days, and finally Paul has enough of it, and he casts the demon out of her. Well, the woman was used. She was a slave girl, and she was used to earn money, and the slave masters obviously didn't like that. That's their source of revenue, and so they have Paul and Silas shackled up and thrown into prison, into the innermost prison. You would think, God, you led me here. Now I'm in prison. I'm ineffective now. I can't do ministry. This is not what I had in mind. You see, their ministry didn't change. Their place of where they were doing ministry changed, but their goal, their mission had not. You see, they thought they were going to minister outside of those walls, and they did for a period of time, but now their ministry was inside. God had different plans. And so within that prison, they ministered to the guards and the other people that were there. They ended up being ministers exactly where they were at. In our lives, we always have an idea of what we think God's going to take us. We have an idea of this door is going to be open, and when we go through that door, we have this preconceived idea of what it should be, when in reality, God has a completely different idea. It doesn't mean that it's bad at all. God always has our good in mind. We don't always see it that way. We have to be reminded that our plans are not God's plans. And our thoughts are not God's thoughts. God always has our best in mind. And if we embrace that when we go through things, and we embrace that when we go through that door, and we have our preconceived ideas of how things are supposed to be, and they don't end up being the way we thought they should be, we can respond differently. Instead of throwing our hands up in the air and say, well, God screwed this one up, we end up stepping back and say, okay, God, what are you going to do? I had my idea, but you've obviously got something different. I want to see what you're going to do. I want to see how creative you're going to be in this. You see how the difference happens inside of us? When we respond differently, our spirits are more aligned to what God wants to do. We want to see God work. And when we desire to see God work, guess what? We see God work. So here's my challenge for you. Here's my challenge this week. When things don't work out quite the way that we want them to, instead of responding in a way that kind of throws your hands up at God, turn your heart towards Him and ask Him, show me what you're doing. And start to seek Him. Start to find Him in this situation and find opportunities that you can still be the person that God wants you to be. Even though it doesn't turn out the way that you want it to, trust that it's going to turn out the way that God wants it to. He always has your best in mind. We're not supposed to be mastered by our circumstances, but we're supposed to be mastered by Jesus, the God of our circumstances. Thanks so much for being a part of our BNC family.